Okay, I'm Sal Amato. This is EDM America TV, and on Yield Skype with me this morning is U.S. Dance Music Hall of Fame DJ, producer, an original member of the Hot Mix 5. And you want to brag about yourself a little bit today, or you want me to do it for you, Mick?
I'll let you take the helm there.
It's Mickey Mixon Oliver. And Mick, you got your own street sign here in Chicago too, right?
Yeah, I can't believe it.
Yeah, where's that at, Mickey?
It's actually not up, but it's going to be in Wrigleyville.
Oh, no kidding.
Right, yeah, right near Clark and trying to think of that crossroad there.
Well,
I think it's going to be near Clark and Sheffield. It's not about like a few blocks down from Wrigley Field.
now, how did they wind up deciding to put it there?
Well, I guess you can ask. Go to the alderman, and then if he okays it, then you're good to go. And so I guess once the city council passes the resolution that you get the street named after you, at that point, then you can lobby where you'd like it.
And you didn't have to really shell out any dough or anything, and they didn't threaten you with not picking up your garbage, right? I mean, they just
Yeah,
did.
no, they called me up one day and they said, "City council, we named a street after you." I go, "Wow, what's that going to cost me?" They go, "No, you idiot, we're doing it for you."
Nick, let's go back to the start, man. I mean, you and I mean, we've known each other since what I was probably about 120 pounds, so that was a long time ago. About 82. But take me back to when you started. Your first. How did you wind up being a DJ when you started? Tell me the year, and let's talk about the first club and your first record you played and how you got started.
I actually started right about that time. When I got on WBMX, I'd only been DJing 5 months. Kind of probably a rare one. But so that was it. I started working at a club called Club Dimensions in Highland, Indiana. That was my really first one. And then I worked almost the same time at another place called Smuggler's Inn in Munster, Indiana, that had quite the reputation back then.
Right.
And so that was my beginning, which was just 5 months before BMX.
So what were you doing before you were DJing, Nick?
I started going to college, and I was going to Indiana University.
Did you want to be an archaeologist or a fireman, or did you want to be a nurse? What did you want to do when you were going to college?
I went to college, and my major was public affairs, but it was one of those things sometimes when you go your first year, you don't really have a defined direction yet. You're just kind of feeling it out a little bit. So I think I was probably a person that was just bouncing around and really didn't found my direction yet in life. So I was kind of just sniffing it out in college.
Yeah, so you were trying to figure out whether or not the chicks were hot enough to stay, right?
Yeah. They were good at Indiana.
So how did you wind up at WBMX? I mean, I know when Lee put it, but how did you wind up as part of it all at WBMX?
I heard through somebody, which I don't recall right now, somebody said that WBMX was auditioning for mixers. This innovative program director wanted to bring the art of turntablism to radio, and I guess the citywide or the Midwest area call was out, and it just got around to everybody. So like probably everybody in Chicago, I submitted tapes to it, and Marco Spoon right away says, "Listen, we'd like to get you on here regularly." He says, "You're really sounding good." And I go, "Really?" Because I didn't know. And I was like, "Wow, that's pretty cool." So I was taking them up every week, and sometimes they were waiting on me to get my tape there. And that was kind of the beginning of it.
Yeah, that was back in the day when we handed in 10-inch reel-to-reels. Remember that?
Yeah, exactly.
So Lee, who actually, for those of you listening, Lee Michaels was the program director, who's also a member of the U.S. Dance Music Hall of Fame. Amazing how we create this U.S. Dance Music Hall of Fame, and we include people who we've been in the business with for 30, 35 years, as well as a lot of today's big names like Skrillex and Avicii. But when Lee brought the mix shows, at that time, that was, I mean, for all intents and purposes, people don't realize back in the day, you had no alternative to anything on the radio. It was AM, it was FM, or it was an 8-track, because we were just starting to come into the cassette world at that time. Remember, 80, 81? Cause,
Yeah.
So I mean, people really had no choices. Disco had been blown up, and there was still a vibrant club scene. It's just that there was no exposure on the radio here in Chicago, or really anywhere in the country, right, Mick?
Right.
At that time, so we were all playing. I mean, I know the South Side was very, you were playing a lot of funk. I mean, I'll never forget. Every time I walked in when you were working, I heard "Love Gun" by Rick James.
Some dinosaurs there.
And but then you had the down tempo stuff like Unlimited Touch and Searching to Find the One, and when we in those early years when you did a mix, Mickey. I mean, how long did it take you to do the mix? I mean, some of these guys today when they're doing their mixes for radio, they're like, well, I got to work for the next 8 hours on my mix. I'm like, dude, you have a computer. I mean, back then you had your reel to reel, you put your mix down, and that was it. And I would have thought it'd be a lot quicker to do the mix today with the computer than it was 30 years ago to do it on a 10-inch reel. How did you lay out your mixes, Mickey, for the radio? I mean, because there were the mini mixes, and then there was, the Friday Night Jams, and then there was the Saturday Night Live Ain't No Jive Chicago Dance Party. And let me finish that thought that Lee Michaels is also our business partner here at EDM America TV, as well as our sister site at WBMX.com, and works with us on Q101.com. So how did you put your mixes together, Mick? When you got, talk about the record pools and getting service on the music, how that worked back then.
Sure. Basically, any DJ who was going to be a relevant DJ had to belong to a record pool to get his music, because the promos, sometimes a lot of them you couldn't buy them in the stores, certain 12-inch versions. So I belonged to Audio Talent and Independent Record Services. I think I bounced between both of them back then. I was also on the Indiana record pool too. Give Johnny George a nice plug there.
Right.
and I guess back then we had a crate. We had all of our records in our crates, and we'd take them around. So if I was going to do a mix, I'd go through the crate, and I'd line up maybe a dozen of them. Okay, I'll play this one and this one after and this after on this one. So I'd reshuffle them a little bit, and then I'd just wing it on the rest of the mix. And so when we fire up reel to reel, it was real time. So you had to be ready to rock and roll mistake free, and have some serious focus. So that's how I'd kind of do it, and then just start flying. When I did mini mixes, I did them more artistically. On those, it was a shorter time span, so I made it a lot more intense. And so what I would do is I did a lot of editing. And reel-to-reel editing, and I got really creative at it. And I got to the point where I made almost a science out of it, where if it was 100 beats per minute, or 120 beats per minute, or 130 beats per minute, I knew exactly how much of tape a 16th a beat was, a quarter note, a half note. I had all these measurements down, and so I could really get creative and stutter edits and just all sorts of really crazy stuff.
Now, you were doing, and from what I remember too, because I remember seeing the carts, you had remixes of Party Lights.
Oh, yeah.
Then you had the remix of Cutie Pie by One Way. And I think there was one more I remember that Lee had in regular rotation instead of using the regular. And that was really, the first time ever in the history of radio that a different version, other than the label's given version to the radio station, was really ever used, was when you did those remixes with the whack it with the horns, the horn and Party Lights.
I probably had a dozen of them. I remember I did Michael Jackson's, one of his tracks.
Was it Heartbreak Hotel, or wait a minute?
No,
or Lovely One? Was it Lovely One?
No, it was the big one.
Or was it Don't Stop Till You Get Enough?
Yep.
Yeah.
No, wait a minute. No, it wasn't that one either. Or was it?
Because that was 79. But,
yeah, it was after that. It was on the Beat It album. And so he had a lot of breaths in it. So I took all the breaths and I edited them together, and it was really creative. It created a lot of energy.
So now let's talk about, you did 3 incredible medleys back then, and you had to go to either imports. You had to go to imports, the store, Loop Records, or you had bits and pieces, hunks and chunks, and then there was the other one that didn't get released, which we'll talk about. But at that time, and this was something that every club DJ couldn't wait to do because we wanted to tell everybody we were doing it. Is when you went from Celebration to Whip It, and that was what was that? Was that Hunk? That was Bits and Pieces, right? The yellow
Hunks and chunks.
Hunks and Chunks. That's right. Now, how long? And I mean, how did you conceive going from Celebration to? How did you go from 100 and well, Celebration started at about what 116 and it went to 124, and then Whip It was like about 159 BPMs. How did you even conceive going from Celebration to Whip It?
Yeah, it was a trick. So what I did was kind of a mind trick. What I did was Celebration was actually running. It's on a turntable at 124 beats per minute, and Whip It was running at 162. But what I did was I had two reel-to-reels, and one I made a tape loop. So I took a tape loop of Celebration going, "Come On," and I edited the beats closer. Even though it was running at 124, by taking some of the track out, because I knew the measurements to get to 160 beats per minute,
Mm-hmm.
I edited the beats shorter. So then during the song, the transition to Whip It, I had it go, "Come On," and then I edited the beats closer, "Come On," and then they were closer. And it was actually, makes the tempo go up, but basically they're still saying "Come On" at 124 beats per minute. So as I shortened it, then it worked its way to the loop, and then all of a sudden Whip It came in, and people are like, "What?"
Yes. So you were almost,
possible.
you were literally, so basically you were in between the beat. Is what where you were. You were pretty much in between. Is that safe to say it was like in between the beat?
Yeah, just shortening, bringing the snare in quicker,
Yeah, yeah.
and then the next kick in quicker.
And then of course the Blues Brothers to really make it worthwhile at the end there.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's talk about mastering back then. And I mean, really getting this. You did that whole thing in your house, right? Because if I remember, I know we came over a couple times. You had everything set up in your attic, right, when you were living in Highland.
Yeah, exactly.
And the records, and you did, and there was always tape on the floors, and so you did all that in the house. So you get it done. How did you get it to go? How did you wind up? A lot of people mastering back then is a lot different than mastering is today. I mean, today you master in your bathroom on your iPhone, but
Right.
getting something mastered back then, how did you get it mastered? And what were the costs, Mick, back then for you to master a piece of vinyl?
Back then, what they do, I would take it to a mastering place, and there was one in Indiana, a guy named Bud Pressner.
Was that off reel to reel? So it was mastered off reel, right?
Yeah, so
Okay.
I'd take him the reel, and he would EQ it, trying to kind of get the high end back up just a little bit, because once you record on the reel, you use a little degeneration there.
Mm-hmm.
And so he'd bring the high back up, and then he'd cut an acetate of it, which would be they did a lot of that back then. It's like a metal record. And then from there, they would make the master, or the mother, I guess you would say.
Yeah, they
off
used to
the
call
master.
it a mother master, right? And then when we
Yeah.
got into the CD, it became a glass mother. Once we got into the CD world,
Right.
so now the Hot Mix 5 is rolling, and you guys are. I mean, there's a million people a week listening to shows. We got to talk about not only Division Street, how they closed off Division Street. For a while because of if you walked up and down Division Street on a Friday night, there wasn't a car. And for people who don't know, here in Chicago, Division Street was the nightclub mecca for downtown. There was Faces, there was PS Chicago, there was at that time it was still BBC, right? Yeah, it was before Eddie
Yeah.
Rockets,
Yeah.
and that was the downtown scene. Then the South Side, Gene Hunt, they had all their clubs, Sours and Taste Entertainment. The South Side DJs in the suburbs were a lot of times, we a lot of us all worked downtown and the suburbs, but the that downtown scene, there was you had to really look hard to find somebody who didn't have WBMX with Mickey Oliver or Scott Sills or Farley Jackmaster functioning coming out of their car at about 8,000 watts on that Pioneer Super Tuner 2.
Yeah, exactly. It was so eerie. I remember days being down there. I worked at PS Chicago on occasion,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember walking out of there. And it was one time I think I was with Lee and somebody else. We were talking, and then all of a sudden we said to each other, "Has anybody heard like a Def Leppard song or a rock song?" and we listened. It was like so eerie. It was the weirdest thing I could ever imagine, that all of this echoed out just our radio station.
Yeah.
That kind of power. That's amazing.
And once again, it goes back to saying it really was the only alternative people had in radio, because everybody else was, like you said, Def Leppard, John Cougar, all that, the same rock. Every station was playing the same thing, including GCI, which was more urban based and refused to acknowledge the younger demo, which, there was 1 million people listening to just the mix shows on the weekends,
Right.
And here, I'll give you an example. Back then, Jobo, who was at B96, Joe came here, and I think in '84, and Joe was there were times where Joe's like, man, I wish we could add some of this shit, man, because we ain't playing none of it, and we're missing out on all of it. And Jobo, remember, he was the music director at that time. When he came from Ohio, he was doing the nights, and then he became the music director at B96 here in Chicago.
Oh, nice.
And Joe was a huge fan of everything that was going on at BMX. But they, corporate radio at that time too was just nope, we're playing the hits, we're playing Duran Duran, we're gonna play, Thomas Dolby, and which is ironic when you think about it, because in the mixes, all of us club DJs, including even Farley, you were playing Thomas Dolby,
Yeah.
We're playing Talking Heads. It was like we played everything, but yet radio would not acknowledge at that time all these club records that people knew existed. It was like it's not like people didn't like these songs. They went to DJ stores to buy them, but radio would not acknowledge that music at a mainstream CHR Top 40 level. Only urban radio did.
Right.
So when you're at BMX, in the mixes, the ratings are through the roof. Rainbow Beach, remember that? The big.
Oh yeah. Wow.
How many people would you say were at that Rainbow Beach when the city forced everybody to leave? How many people would you?
I wasn't there, but I heard it was a mob scene.
It was about 60,000 people.
Wow.
It was just a mass of humans everywhere. And all those parties from Da Vinci. And how did you wind up in all of your mixes getting Rodney Dangerfield to do some drops for you?
Oh, I went to Florida once for with some of my friends for spring break. A lot of us did that back then. And I stumbled on him, and everybody was harassing him, and he was like shooing him away. And then I went up to him and I says, "Hey, I took your rap, one of your albums, and I took Chic, Good Times, the instrumental, and had your jokes over it, and I played it in mixes, so it's getting playing on a radio station called WBMX in Chicago." And he was so fascinated by it that he became instantly friends with me. He goes, "You actually lifted my vocal, put it on an instrumental, and played it on the radio." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "That's incredible." So after that, he's like, "Anything you want." So it was quite the story.
So, and taken from that, from what I remember, because I know I still do this to this day, and I think it was you that started it. Remember the orange Razor Maid?
Yeah.
And it had that "Oh You Bastard" stuff on it, and
right.
A lot of effects. It was that, and then there was it you that did Andrew Dice Clay over French Kiss?
I think I did about every guy.
Yeah.
I think I had him out over everything.
Because you put Andrew Dice Clay over French Kiss, and it sounded like he was doing the rap, but it's kind of... So let's talk about the whole Hot Mix 5 record label. You form a label.
Yes.
And do you recall what the first record Hot Mix 5 put out?
Yeah, it was My House is Bigger Than Your House, and it was I called the artist MG Squared. It was for Mickey and Grant. So me and a friend of mine, Grant, did the first record, and we sang it together and wrote it together, and that became HMF 101, the first one.
And now on your album, Mick, you had Shauna Jackson. How did you who eventually wound up to go on to work with Kevin and Juan and those guys for Inner City with Good Life and Big Fun? How did you wind up with Shauna here in Chicago?
I was looking for a singer, and I'm trying to remember who it was, but somebody in my inner circle, everybody was kind of mentioning singers, and one person mentioned her. And so Shauna came in and sang, and we really hit it off good. And she was just a fabulous person to work with. And she sang my first two singles.
Yeah,
And it really helped get her noticed because Kevin, I had a deal for her right after. Of course, go for the gold.
Yeah.
In her case, go for the platinum.
Yeah.
She got it. Yeah, I was so proud of her.
Now, Never Let Go. Yeah, she did the vocals on Never Let Go, and what was the other track that she did vocals on?
She did Heart on Hold and
Heart on
another
Hold, yeah.
one, I Like You. I Like It.
Yeah, because Never Let Go. Now explain to people. There was Hot Mix 5 Records, but then you had your own imprint as well, correct, Mickey?
Yeah, I had another label called M Records.
Right. And that's what the album was on, correct? The album was on M.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't, may not know this, but back, let's see, it was '82. I was working on Bad Boys, so it was '82, and that's when I first met you. I was working with Pete Marzano. We were working at Culpeppers, which was way up on the north side, and Pete was looking to make a jump, and he was going to go to the south side, and wherever Pete went, I went because I was too young to drive. So he'd come pick me up with my records. I'd go sneak out of the house. He'd pick me up on a corner somewhere with crates of records, and then we'd go, wherever we were going to go work. And you were working at Dior's at that time. Which was probably one of the most incredibly cool clubs for the south side at that time. Remember, it had love seats instead of chairs.
Yeah, it was cool. It was something else.
What a DJ booth, too. It had enough room for you in that DJ booth to put your reel-to-reels, because I remember we had come in there when you were actually working there one night, and I was like, what the hell? He's using cassettes? You had cassette, you had all kinds of shit all over the booth. I was like, wow, that's a hell of a lot more intricate than just two turntables.
Yeah, all sorts of things going sometimes.
Yeah. And then you had that other club, Rain, which was a very cool club, the Rain Disco.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the bird that was out in front of the joint? Remember they had a bird that used to tell everybody to go fuck themselves?
No, I forgot about that.
They had a bird, they had one of those big birds like the macaws. Hello, fuck you! Blow it out your ass, And the real Southside attitude. They had it trained perfectly.
Perfect.
So with intensity, how did you come up with intensity? I mean, did somebody lay a bass line out and then using what do they call it? The vocoder, right? Or speak and spell? I'm sorry, speak and spell.
What happened was I had this, I was looking for a voice that sounded robotic and grungy. And I wanted to try to start a new vibe for house music. So I went to Toys R Us and I bought a speak and spell. And I took this thing home and I went through all the dialogue it had, and I go, oh my gosh, it's going to be impossible to get a verse out of this. So somehow I pulled it off. And then intensity was, I took the word in and the number 10, and from the word C I took, and then T from just the letter T, and I edited them together. But I edited them together, first of all I sampled them on a keyboard because I wanted to put voice in fluctuation. So when I sampled them, I had several keys in between, so I can go intensity. And so that's how gave it a human feel instead of with the robot having a little human feel. And so that became intensity. Isn't that crazy? That's how I ended up doing it.
Yeah. And you probably were able to use a toy for a tax write-off, right? Sure.
Yeah, exactly. My mom thought that she goes, did I drop you on your head when you were a kid?
My mother used to pound on the floor. Turn that music down, or I'm going to take your turntables, and she'd be yelling through the floor. Turn that shit down, or I'm throwing it out the window. Now, how many copies, Mick? I mean, do you remember how many copies did Intensity has that 12-inch? Do you recall how many you guys went through?
Boy, it was huge. I can't remember. It's been a long time, but it might have been 50,000.
Which is a big number. I mean, people don't realize for an independent label,
underground sound.
Yeah, with no support other than, and that was the power of the mix shows.
Yeah.
And that was really the first time the labels had to start scratching their head and they're like, how the hell are these people selling 40, 30, 40, 50,000 records in a single market? and distributing this to all. It was the power of the DJ stores, because you couldn't go to a Sound Warehouse or a Music Land to find any of this stuff back then.
Right, right. It was on the independents.
Yeah, it was the independent, and once again, you look at radio. Radio just really ignored it all, other than down in Arizona when Guy Zapolian was at ZZP,
Okay.
because they were playing a lot of it down there. I was working in Phoenix back and forth with Dave Rajput, and
Okay.
and Dave was playing because he was from here, so he was in control down there at ZZP. And I first time I went down there, and I didn't know Dave yet. I was like, wow, they're playing Native Love on the mix shows, because they had started, what you guys started here, and what Lee started here, started filtering to the markets where there was urban content and urban radio, where people were still dancing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So to hear Intensity on KZZP at 10:30 at night in a mix show was like, wow.
Crazy. Yeah. Wow.
How did that happen? And, Marcus Schultz was part of that crew. A lot of people don't realize Marcus, who's another U.S. Dance Music Hall of Fame member, Marcus was part of all of that, playing all of that stuff way back then.
Well, when I started Powerhouse Records, just right around 1990, the first remixer we brought on was Marcus.
Oh yeah, that's right. Marcus was the first.
Yeah, he did his first remix was with me on Powerhouse.
Wow, and it was you, Jimmy Drosos, and who else was with Powerhouse?
Well, me and Andy Starr.
Andy Starr, that's right. You had the studio out in the south side in Orland Park. Was it Star? Was it Star Studio?
Yeah. Star
Treks or something. Yeah, it was like 151st.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we ended up moving it to Mark Klein's record store in Lansing.
Lansing, yeah. When I had Modern Tracks, which was a CD service that we wound up selling to a promo only, used to do a lot of business with Mark back then.
Oh, okay.
So now with Intensity, when you listen to what you're hearing today in the Electro House sound and the electro sound, it's really, really. I think it shows, Mickey, how far ahead of your time you were with that sound, because other than Chip, when he did "If You Only Knew," which had that same drum, the house sound didn't have any sound like that yet. So like you had said earlier, you had set out to change it, and and Benny Benassi, when he did Satisfaction, was it 2003? The first thing I heard when he put Satisfaction out, I just said, "Holy shit, this is like Intensity all over again."
Yeah, Intensity 203.
Yeah, 25 years later, was it? Yeah, 25 years. And that's why I would really, one of these days, maybe we can do a remix competition and have Intensity remixed and re-released with about 8,000 versions. Because for me, Mickey, it's still one of the most advanced house records that was ever made, because it had such a different sound, and the beauty of house was the simplicity of house.
Right.
So let's talk about what you're doing today, Mick. What are you working on today?
I'm in Las Vegas, and I'm putting together a 3D projection mapping show. Now, there's quite a few DJs that have dabbled in it a little bit, and Amon Tobin toured with a set that he projected on it.
Oh, Morgan Page too.
Morgan's doing just more of an LED wall, but some 3D stuff, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's great animations and so forth. A specific set, Dadsik did a little like a vortex, like a huge. He was in a huge vortex in the middle of it.
Oh.
He did something. Armin Van Buren, he just did one, a show that's got kind of a flat wall too. But I'm trying to do is similar to what Amon Tobin did on a specifically designed set, but different from him. His was just him DJing. I'm bringing Cirque du Soleil elements into it. So there'll be aerialists, dancers, live people synchronized to 3D animations, and there'll be vocalists, musicians, a themed show. And it should be pretty fabulous.
You see now, like mine, smart people think alike, because Armin's new Armin Only, he's incorporating some of those elements, I believe. And I know ATB, and when we interviewed ATB, and his show was just, it was insane, man. I mean, there was like it was like Barry White's Love Unlimited Orchestra up there on the stage, you know. But
Wow.
the what you're talking about with the image, the 3D, none of that really was in depth the way you're talking about it. So you're taking it to another level.
Yeah, I'm taking it to a whole different level than any of these guys. Basically, not to short side them; they're doing wonderful. But I'm trying to take it really like Cirque du Soleil meets EDM meets live musicians uh, and all Cirque du Soleil type of actors and so forth.
Now, is that going to be happening soon? Are you working on the deal? Is there anything in place yet, or are you still you?
There's actually a trailer on my YouTube channel, and it's getting quite a bit of notoriety. I think the views are about 500,000 now. It's youtube.com/Mickey Oliver is the URL on it.
Yeah, and what we'll do too, Mickey, is in the for the people listening, there's a page here on EDM America TV that'll have all the links to everything Mickey Oliver. So it'll be like all them stalkers and all them girls. There he is.
That's the guy.
So do
You know, it's crazy, Sal. I just got a message on Facebook from a girl from France, and she goes, "I'm part of Magic Waves. We're a UK-based group, and we're across Europe, and we're into Italo Chicago disco." And she goes, "And you are our hero, and we would make us so happy if we could do an interview with you." And I was like, "Wow, that sound they're really gravitating to it again."
Yeah, and you know it's easier now. I mean, can you imagine if we had this shit 30 years ago?
Yeah.
You know, and right, definitely something I want to talk about is, when we started, which was eons ago. Everything that's happening today was everything we worked for that we wanted. I am so thrilled to see it all where it got to where it's come to today, because we were basically we were doing it, and we had people following and doing, but it wasn't as widely accepted in the mainstream. When I say it, meaning dance, and
Right.
now they call it, now it's EDM. Who are some of the people today that you listen to that you just go, man, that's some really great shit, man, that you're really digging?
You mean back in the day?
No, right now, today.
Oh, right now?
For today.
Well, you mentioned ATB. I like him. He's very musical. A lot of melodies. I like his style. A lot of the big guys like Armin. He's got a lot more melodies in his stuff. Some of the stuff that's more just beats has never been my flavor. I always liked a little bit more two stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if think about it for a second, some of the guys I like, there's just so many of them out there now. I mean, Zed's doing well.
And that's the beauty of SoundCloud, isn't it? And everything else that's out there is that where everything was bottled up when we started, you had to either get a mixtape or something. Now you just go online, and you can find guys like Chainsmokers, or even Zed before he became what he is today.
Yeah.
You can discover these kids, and as you listen to their older stuff on SoundCloud, you hear as an artist how they've grown, how the complexities and what they do musically, production wise. You go back 2-3 years of their work, you can hear the growth and how how they've grown as an artist with with their arrangements and production. And when you mentioned Armin, and then you had an ATB. I think the difference between trance, and you tell me what you think, Mick. I think that trance is very thematic. It's very. Remember when Jim Steinman would write a song, he would take you through all these changes, and it was very thematic. And
Yeah.
house is very rhythmic and soulful. So those were. From the way I always looked at, they were. I loved them both for what they are, but they really are two completely different styles of music. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, they are different. Definitely different. But I think trance is kind of slanted from how far over one side it was. It's slanted over a little bit, and house is slanted a little over too. So it seems like there's getting to be a lot of common denominators now in every one of these subgenres.
Now, do you think that's due to the lesser degree of talent, or do you think it's the learning curve of the up and coming talent, where they're going through what everybody's gone through, which is I'm new and I'm going to learn and then I'm going to develop from there.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that in the public demand, because remember how when we do tracks, we'd have the kick go all the way through? Now, if you hear a song, the kick is only on an energy part, and that's it. Because the knock for us in the old days was that the kick wore you out after a while.
Right.
And so now that the kick is used artistically, the songs have gone pop. And I think they're going to stay for a while now. Because I think now dance music has the formula that, okay, we won't beat them up with the kick, the whole stuff. And so everything is more musical now. And I think the longevity is going to be here now for EDM.
Yeah,
it's funny calling it EDM. It's house music.
Yeah. Hey, whatever it takes, man. And a lot of guys, there's a lot of people that want to hate on it, And I ain't trying to recapture the glory days. I mean, I like I tell everybody, I cherish our past. I don't live in it, because I love what's going on. I love all these kids who are in their basement, because these kids in their basement today are no different than what we were in our basements 30 years ago. They just have a much wider platform to expose it. You know what I mean, Mick?
Right.
And I love where we're at. And guys like you who are still pushing the envelope, still making things happen, still relevant, not staying in the past, moving forward. I think it's a testament to to the talent and just your the way you operate. It's how you stay relevant through all these years in this business. Because there's a lot of guys who never really stayed relevant. They just fell off the map. Their lifestyles went in different directions. But it's a bitch staying in this business.
Yeah, it is. You got to kind of stay with it. I mean, I tried in 2010. I produced and then starred, for better or for worse, at a major theater at Planet Hollywood on the Strip. I had my own show, and it was pretty crazy. We did the history of house music in theatrical form, and I DJ'd a demonstration. I sang a couple songs, and I played keyboards, and it was artistic. And the show got picked up there at Planet Hollywood on the Strip. So I was like the first DJ to have a theatrical show at a major venue like that at Las Vegas. And so now I'm trying to take it to the new level, and hopefully it'll all be well received.
Yeah, and the level that you're going into is pretty much the level that I had envisioned for EDM America TV, because my philosophy has always been, okay, after a while, people are going to get pretty bored of watching some guy do the Jesus pose or grab his crotch and twist a knob.
Exactly.
You got to bring something else to the table, or you're going to blow it. People are going to say, okay, I'm going to sit here on my TV screen, I'm going to watch a guy push buttons. You've got to bring something more to the table. People get bored. What else you got? That was great before. What else you got? You know what I mean?
I totally agree. The fist pumping is kind of come to an end, and it's just there's not enough there. And I think the novelty of the DJ thing, now that it's gone global in the spotlight, the next step is going to be a DJ is going to have to be a little bit more of an entertainer now. You just can't stand there and, if you're in a 3D show and you're just fist pumping it, to me, coming from a Las Vegas show, that's like a flat tire. Everything has to be synchronized and moving in a show, and I think that's what it's going to come to.
I hope so, because you and others are doing that now, are already doing that and leading the way. And it's really cool, Nick, to see guys on a stage, even if they've got their drum machine or whatever they got, and creating beats on the fly. It's cool to see that, but you're still going to have to bring. It's kind of like I have to go to the strip club mentality for a moment, but you can only watch a girl walk back and forth and hump the pole for so long before you get bored.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay, great. She's got 66 triple C's, but what else? Or triple D's, what else she got? Because after a while, you got to bring something else to the table. And I think that as an artist, you've grown, and there's a newer generation. They're growing, and they're throwing a lot of different things into the mix to see what sticks. Now, festival-wise, are we going to see any of the festivals or any shows coming up for the spring and summer?
Yeah, I hope so. As soon as I can get the show ready, I'm hoping to have it ready by May, and I should be able to hit most of the festivals with that show, because it's going to really be, it's going to raise a lot of eyebrows.
great. Well, we're going to stay in touch as I always do, and you can rub it into me on how great the weather is out there.
Okay.
You know what really bothers me is that you have In-N-Out Burger and I don't have that here.
Uh-oh.
But you're thin. You eat healthy. You don't even know how to run your plate. That ain't right.
I try anyway, because I can't walk on this stage and go, who's that guy?
You thin. You don't understand the plight of the fat man. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So we're going to stay in touch. We'll have all the information up on EDM America TV. As we get ready to wrap up here, I'm Sal Amato with U.S. Dance Music Hall of Fame DJ, producer, and getting ready to take the strip in Vegas with a whole new kind of show. It's Mickey Mixon Oliver, an original member of the Hot Mix 5, and one of the original DJs to ever do. I listen to hunks and chunks and bits and pieces. I just shake my head, dude, because I know how many hours went into that. I just don't have that kind of patience. So kudos to you.
Thank you so much, Sal.
All right, Mick. Good talking with you, and we'll speak soon. Okay.
Sounds great.
All right, Mick. Take care.
Sure. Bye
Bye
now.
bye. All right.